This is Storm Team 8 meteorologist Julie Phillips. We do have another tornado warning that has just been issued for Hillsborough County now. The potential rotation that we are tracking currently is over the water just to the northeast of St. Pete. So we don't want to take a look out over our camera. You can see in Square Mouth, a lot of clouds around. We've seen some stronger winds there, already a quarter of an inch of rain. And here's where that tornado warning is in effect. You can see it includes MacDill Air Force Base, South Tampa, through Davis Island, this whole area. So if you're just south of downtown Tampa proper, the potential rotation we're tracking is still in the water, but it's moving towards the northeast in that direction. This whole system making its way off towards the northeast. We've been talking about the threat for some severe storms today for a while, and now we do have that tornado warning that has been issued again until 2:45 p.m. for southern Hillsborough County, which does include MacDill Air Force Base. The potential to see some rotation was just towards the northeast of St. Petersburg, continuing to make its way off towards the Air Force Base. A little bit of rotation right now, thankfully not quite as strong as it was in that last scan we were just looking at. So that is some good news, but still a tornado warning in effect until 2:45. We are looking at some strong rotation within this storm. You can see the heavy rainfall extending now from around Feather Sound south all the way through Sarasota County. And we do have some other traffic cameras we want to take a look outside of. This is off of 275. If we can pull that up, we can take a look at some of that. You can see some rain coming down that's shaking as some of the stronger winds we're dealing with. Even if you're not under that tornado warning, you could still be dealing with some of those strong and gusty winds. Rain doesn't look to be too hard right now, but still not a great time to be out and about traveling. Again, especially if you do live in southern Hillsborough County, that is included in South Tampa. If you live in the Davis Islands area, MacDill Air Force Base, you are under that tornado warning until 2:45 p.m. That's going to be in the next 20 minutes or so. We're going to be under a threat. So until then, make sure you stay indoors, the lowest level of your homes, away from windows that could potentially break if we do see some of this rotation come into fruition. So that's what we're currently looking at right now. Let's take a look at the relative velocity again, and we can potentially track where we could be seeing some shear around. We can pull up on that, and you can see here's what we're looking at now. Again, we were tracking some rotation right near the St. Pete area, Pinellas Park. This is where we had that tornado warning in effect earlier this afternoon. This whole area now moving off towards the northeast, narrowing in on the far southern portions of South Tampa near MacDill Air Force Base. And we could potentially be seeing some rotation there, which is why that tornado warning has been issued until 2:45 this afternoon. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 8 p.m. this evening for the entire Tampa Bay area. We could all be seeing some heavy rain, gusty winds, and storms. Overall, though, our biggest concern right now is, again, that tornado warning. So, again, from MacDill Air Force Base north all the way up to around 275 or so, this is the area we're concerned about, all the way east towards Davis Island. So generally the South Tampa area is where the threat is at the moment. So here's big picture wise what we're looking at, a strong line of showers and storms rolling through. As we take a closer look in at the area we're dealing with, here's where we could potentially be seeing some rotation. Here's where we were before. This is making its way off towards the northeast. Chief Meteorologist Steve Jervy is here looking at the data as well. We'll hear from him in a moment, but you can see right now we could be seeing some rotation heading towards the MacDill Air Force Base. This is our relative velocity scan. We're looking at the wind speeds and the rotation we could potentially be seeing from within them. You can see here right now near the MacDill Air Force Base where we could potentially be seeing that potential tornado moving in. So this is making its way pretty quickly off towards the northeast. If you are just north of MacDill Air Force Base, you do want to be concerned right now. This could potentially be right on top of you, and this will make its way towards the northeast, towards Harbor Island, Davis Islands. If you live on any of those, downtown Tampa, you may want to take cover as this is quickly making its way off towards the northeast at around 30 miles per hour this afternoon. We'll keep that tornado warning in effect until 2:45. We put the tracks for you, and you can see it'll be in the Davis Island, Harbor Island area around 2:38 in Davis Island, 2:41 in Harbor Island. So that's within the next 10 minutes. If you're out and about traveling, if you have friends or family that are traveling, make sure they head on indoors. Lowest level of your home, that's the safe bet, away from windows in case we do see some of those very strong gusts or that potential to see a tornado. And again, we're looking at your relative velocity, which is where we're looking at the potential, the greens and red, that coupling is where we could be seeing some rotation. So 234 Harbor Island, 239 Ybor City, 242 Palm River, 247 Orient Park. This is all making its way off towards the northeast with this storm. So let's take it over to Steve Jervy, and he have some more information for us from the National Weather Service as well. Steve?
Well, waiting to get more information from the National Weather Service right now, Julie, but we are watching this intense line, and this is a squall line. We mentioned it might come ashore yesterday, and it's been fairly evident out in the Gulf of Mexico over the last 24 hours. It'd be a pretty good line of thunderstorms, quite a bit of lightning out there earlier today. And the line stretches from Newport Richey all the way down just east of St. Petersburg and now moving toward the western portion of South Tampa. And that would include MacDill Air Force Base, as you mentioned. Some very strong wind gusts up and down this area. The warned areas we talked about, the tornado warning, you guys could get a printed of the tornado warning and bring it to me, just so I can talk about the area that we're specific about here. Bayonet Point, Newport Richey, down through East Lake and Oldsmar. Let's take a look at a tower cam image we have right now. This is a view of across the bay. Again, a tornado warning in effect for Hillsborough County, and you can see the effect right there. It will expire at about, looks like about 15 minutes or so. Yeah, until 2:45. So about 2:45. National Weather Service meteorologists have detected a waterspout 7 miles southwest of MacDill Air Force Base. This was a couple of minutes ago, and it's moving very, very quickly now, moving northeast at 55 miles per hour. When you see storms move this quickly, you know that there's some very strong wind gusts, if not the possibility of a tornado in here. And as we loop this, you can see what I'm talking about, the fast forward speed of these this line of thunderstorms. Again, we were looking at the velocity imagery, and that did show the possible rotation and at the very least some very strong wind gusts. There you see the velocity imagery that we mentioned earlier, and that's the latest image. It's very difficult, especially when it's this close to the radar site, to pick out perhaps the winds that are going toward the radar site or away from the radar site, a very clear signature. This is a waterspout that was warned by the National Weather Service, so they typically don't show that well up on relative velocity, but certainly that line of wind gusts is very impressive as we look at the loop here, and that's essentially it, right where that squall line was located. Certainly that's where we're seeing the highest winds at the moment. This is again a broader look at the severe thunderstorm watch, and that's in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. It includes virtually all the Bay Area, of course goes from Hernando County all the way down to Sarasota County and off to Highlands County. That's the warned area currently in effect at 2:30. Of course, that's what the timestamp is, but right now it's about 2:33, in effect for another 15 minutes or so. And the National Weather Service radar did detect that waterspout in the atmosphere moving along. That's a big picture view. We've been talking about waiting on an area of low pressure, the timing of which has been tough. We knew it would be the second half of the day, but it's coming in a little bit earlier. And because it's moving so fast, as I mentioned, that squall line at about 55 miles per hour, it's going to have some very high wind gusts, needless to say. It goes all the way up to the western part of Pasco County, Newport Richey, east of Palm Harbor, and also down around west of South Tampa and MacDill Air Force Base, the actual squall line itself. But the winds are going to push on out ahead of that. And the National Weather Service did detect that waterspout. And sometimes when waterspouts come on shore, all the time actually, they're officially considered to be a tornado, and that's why they've warned on this area that's in effect for another 10 minutes or so for the area that we talked about. Again, that squall line goes all the way down through western part of Manatee County. Could be some small hail, but mostly we're concerned about wind gusts. With the shape of the echo itself from radar, when you see this bow shape, this bow effect, that's just a good indication that you've got some very strong wind gusts. And it's moving very quickly, as I mentioned, in that northeasterly fashion at 55 miles per hour. I'm laughing at that because it's so ridiculous when you see systems move that fast. It's extreme. I mean, they are going to put out some strong wind gusts. You don't typically see, even thunderstorms that are moving fast considered to be 25, 35 miles per hour, sometimes 40 miles per hour. But when they're moving at 55 miles per hour, you know you have an intense area of low pressure. You know you've got some higher shear values that could create tornadoes, and that's why they have this severe thunderstorm watch in place. Tornadoes, of course, one of the things that severe thunderstorms can produce. We're watching for those supercells that can produce that, but within this squall line itself, that's where you'll see these very fast-moving winds that change direction with height and very quickly, especially in the state of Florida. It's kind of our modus operandi is to see these develop very, very quickly and move off to the northeast at a high rate. Again, showers continue to move all the way down around Sarasota. The more intense areas continue to be farther to the north. As we look outside, this is about kind of ground zero, the area we're talking about. And this is why we like our weather cameras so much. It allows you to actually look outside at the moment and see what's going on, especially in the area concerned. And this is the area that the waterspout was sighted briefly on radar using the velocity mode out at the National Weather Service, and it's just a rain shield. And sometimes it's very difficult to see these, and this may be the case with this funnel if it's still there, is that it's kind of wrapped in rain. It has a wall of gray and white, and you can actually see the rotation. The winds are pretty strong out of the southwest. They're at 29 miles per hour, gusting higher than that. These are taken over a minute period, and the sustained winds kind of read out as to what we're seeing, but you can see those gusts come in right now. This is basically the area. And if you've been outside and been in these thunderstorms, you know what this is like, just sheets of rain coming along at a very high rate of speed. And that's what we're observing here at our Hula Bay platform at the moment. Let's take our tower cam once again, give you another perspective of the area and show you on that tower cam imagery exactly what's going on around the region. There's that low-hanging clouds. And a lot of times the scuddy-looking clouds can look like tornadoes or certainly severe weather, but in this case, we've actually had reports from the National Weather Service on radar that there could have been a waterspout over the bay. And because of the fast-moving nature of the storm, the bulk of the heavier winds, the possible rotation, are now moving over South Tampa. And we showed you that picture from Hula Bay, which kind of indicated that. So let's have Julie take over the radar. I'm going to try to point some things out on radar here if we can. And you can see the current temperature there is 72 degrees, so we're likely to see a fast temperature drop here as we move throughout this period. So with relative velocity, when we look at that product, it's kind of difficult to see the area that we're talking about, but again, the higher winds are colored in red here on the map, and they're moving pretty rapidly to the northeast. If there was a waterspout sighted right here, and you keep in mind, almost like you're driving a car at 55 miles per hour, by the time it reaches South Tampa, it's probably already clear of the eastern part or western part of South Tampa and now moving back rapidly toward the downtown area, around Harbor Island, eventually Ybor City, Palm River, moving at a pretty quick rate. So let's try to zoom in roughly in this area, Julie, here, and put a track on that to see when folks might expect that storm or the stronger winds from this storm, really this entire line especially. Again, the primary concern, despite that tornado warning that's going to expire here in about 6 minutes or so, there's some very strong winds coming with this. So again, roughly these winds can be expected probably already now in Ybor City and Palm River, but again, the bulk of the storm itself will kind of move your way. You saw that picture from Hula Bay, which showed you the waves of rain coming in and the very high wind gusts in and around this area. Orient Park around 258. This is all moving rapidly to the northeast. And let's zoom out just a little bit more and take a look and see how that wind field moves farther to the north. As you can see, probably not as intense in areas like Newport Richey up in Hernando County, the eastern sections and central sections of Pasco County, but you're still going to see some strong wind gusts eventually in places like Dade City and Zephyr Hills and Wesley Chapel. But it's this area that we were determined, according to the National Weather Service, that there was a possible waterspout just west of South Tampa. But you can see how quickly the brighter colors, which indicate the higher winds, have moved, and these are all racing off to the northeast. So if you're in this area of Orient Park and Harbor Island and Harney and also Palm River, you know this is pretty much on you right now and moving off to the northeast at a rapid rate. This is a big squall line wrapping around an area of low pressure, if you want to call it a cold front itself, that kind of wraps around, cooler air wraps around this area of low pressure, and you can see how broad this range of showers extends. Very typical for a low pressure area to kick out a squall line, sometimes showers ahead of that, and these are probably racing ahead of the actual front itself. But because they're moving at such a rapid rate, it just indicates the strength of the area of low pressure. Been some talk this afternoon, and of course we've been watching the higher shear values within this storm that just indicated that possible rotation, winds that change direction with height. You have a lower level jet stream, then a fast upper level jet stream, still kind of winter, spring time period of the year, and the upper level winds tend to be a little stronger. A great amount of instability tends to create that strong rotation, and that's why we saw that brief rotation from that waterspout. Safe to say, probably, as you saw from our velocity imagery, we didn't see that particular waterspout. It's been canceled? Okay. All right, the tornado warning for western Hillsborough County will expire at 2:45, so that's about 5 minutes or so. But as I was just saying, with the velocity mode, we didn't see a lot of clear signature from that. In other words, the red, the green colors, very simply put close together enough, and that's typically where we spot that very tight rotation that would indicate a very strong tornado. Pretty rare in the state of Florida, but with these kind of systems, we can get EF2 tornadoes and sometimes EF3 tornadoes, which are more typically what you see in Oklahoma or Texas. That's not the case with this storm, but there are some very strong wind gusts, and winds themselves can be very destructive within thunderstorms, even on a typical summer afternoon. And that's what's going on right now with this squall line, as you can see, extending all the way down into Sarasota County and also Manatee County, and this is racing along through Pasco County as well. Again, let's zoom in on this area, Julie, that was warned, and again, this will expire at 2:45. The tornado, according to the National Weather Service in Ruskin, has lifted. However, the storm will continue to produce strong gusty winds, heavy rain, and small hail until it fully dissipates. And I want to emphasize the winds in this. We're likely seeing gusts that could be very close to severe levels, which would be around 58 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour as they race across the bay. Again, this is around South Tampa and right in that region there. That's South Tampa itself. That's MacDill Air Force Base over this area right now. And you can see out to Palm River, Progress Village, East Bay area, Gibsonton, also down around Apollo Beach. Watch for this. And eventually places like Seffner and Thanota-Sassa. This is headed your way as well. You're probably looking off to the west and seeing some very, very dark clouds. So watch for that. We also have a camera imagery before we talk about this. Let's take a look at the camera outside and see if we can see those darker clouds. We've been watching this. This warning, this tornado warning is officially in effect until 2:45. But as we mentioned, the National Weather Service says the tornado or the water spout is no longer showing a signature on radar. So the warning is still officially in effect until 2:45, which is just a couple more minutes. But some very dark clouds moving over the downtown area. That's the camera right on top of our building now. So the best we can do for you folks in Brandon and Plant City eventually into Lakeland and Mulberry, places like that, is just give you a heads up that some very strong and high winds are headed your way. A few lightning strikes here as well. MacDill, Harbor Island, pretty much happening right now. Plant City and Brandon all kind of sliding your way with this strong northeasterly movement of the storm. Again, a broader view. Let's take a look at that, Julie, and just kind of remind folks that I didn't want to just zero in because this is a very broad area. The severe thunderstorm watch is in effect for virtually all the Bay Area, and that will continue to be in effect throughout the afternoon. But it's this area of low pressure right here that is kind of ramping up. And drier air is coming in on the western side of the system itself, but it tends to push this air, this somewhat cooler, drier air, but certainly quite a bit of instability on ahead of it, and that's where you get the squall line, a prefrontal trough, and that's what we're seeing right now as this kind of pushes very quickly off to the northeast. Starts up around the western parts of Pasco County, sections of Hernando County, but certainly through is now, the worst of it is through Pinellas County, and now we're focusing on Hillsborough County, and especially down to Manatee and Sarasota too. That's not the most intense part of the storm, but there's still going to be some very high winds. Again, a few lightning strikes continue to be mixed in here. We'll stay with you for just a couple more minutes until that tornado warning officially expires, but as the National Weather Service has pointed out, just in case you're tuning in, that tornado warning or the tornado itself has actually lifted, although the severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. And you can see that's the affected area throughout the afternoon. Goes from Highlands County through Polk County all the way up into Hernando County, all the way down to Sarasota County. That does include Pinellas and Hillsborough, but mostly the reason they issued that is because of that squall line we've been showing you on radar, and that is moving through the area right now. As I said, the worst of it is likely through most of Pinellas County, maybe a little bit of the north of Pinellas County. Might still see some very heavy rain, but it's the wind gusts on ahead of this, and you can see these little areas that kind of develop. Almost cool air falls off these storms and develops another line on ahead, and that's what we're seeing right here. Anything coming down on there?
Just 44 mile per hour wind in MacDill.
Okay, MacDill Air Force Base reporting a 44 mile per hour wind gust. As I mentioned, 40, possibly 50 mile per hour winds with this as it moves on. And you can see this is moving inland in Sarasota County right now through Venice, Mayaca City, kind of in the path of this storm. This is the more intense. The reason the reflectivity reads these brighter colors, it just means it's more intense rain within there, but it's also indication by experience of looking at this and living in Florida for almost 25 years. You know that with this particular line, there's some very strong wind gusts, and it's really probably the biggest concern with these thunderstorms, the strong wind gusts. You can see that's moving in now the central parts of Hillsborough County, as I said, racing at 55 miles per hour. That's a very fast movement for these storms. You can see that direction that it's moving. So if you're in the path of this storm, certainly you can expect some very strong winds headed your way. Again, that tornado warning has now officially expired. It's 2:45, no longer in effect. We mentioned that the tornado that they warned on, or the water spout that it was over the water, that has lifted according to the National Weather Service. We did not see any signs of that on the velocity imagery from Doppler radar, so that's a good sign. But this whole line is all moving off to the east. So you folks in Polk County and certainly Hardee and DeSoto County, farther south here into the eastern sections of Manatee and Sarasota County, know that some very strong wind gusts are headed your way. We still could get some rotation. We did see that earlier on the Doppler radar, and talk about the higher shear values within the storm itself. So there's that possibility as well. We're going to break away from programming now that this warning is no longer in effect, but the severe thunderstorm watch will be in effect throughout the afternoon, or certainly until we can work this way through the area. But the intensity will definitely drop to the west of that red line that you saw there with the reflectivity as it goes throughout the afternoon. But just a heads up for you folks in these areas, these strong thunderstorms are headed your way. Again, we'll continue to keep you updated with the crawl at the bottom of the screen. Any details, if there's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, we'll be back to give you any kind of details on that specific part of the storm. Right now, let's go back to regular programming.
We now join the following program, already in progress.